Hey you guys, we're on week 2 of The Artist's Way with Julia Cameron. Today I kind of want to just talk about how we fleshed out with week 1 since there was a lot of work to do and we kind of wanted to go through it and experience it for a week and then come back to discuss it and then talk about how we're going to move forward in week 2. So for week 1, I did my morning pages every morning except maybe one day where I procrastinated and thought I'll do that later in the evening, and I never got to it, and I realized that's why they're called morning pages. So there was only one day I didn't do them, and then I quickly realized that they're so important. I was kind of struck by the fact that they turned into prayer. I don't know if you had that experience, but a lot of it was just random thoughts that were coming in, and then eventually it turned into prayer and asking for support and asking creative energy, divine God to kind of come through me and for art to kind of channel through me, and things like that, which I thought it's really beautiful. I actually didn't expect that for some reason, and I actually reached out to my friend who has completed this process, and he said, yeah, all of my morning pages were prayer. They ended up being prayer. So I thought that was interesting. The second day on January 2nd, it might have been the Cancer supermoon, but I was really emotional. I kind of attributed it to this process of unblocking and releasing, but it was very emotional. I had pain that kind of wasn't mine. I'm an empath, so I take on physical pain sometimes, and I used crystals to kind of push it out, and a lot of emotional release went with it, so that was really interesting. So this week we worked with our affirmation, and we also turned our blurts into affirmation. And remember, those blurts were criticisms or things people said that we internalized, and it ended up blocking us, contributing to the creative block we experienced. And I had a few of those that I took on, like artists have the perfect body, or artists are thin, and I made that I'm the perfect size to appeal to my audience. Everyone has that you're not good enough one. I put I'm extraordinary in skill and talent. And then we all have the you're too blank, you're too sensitive, you're too old, you're too lazy, whatever it is. And I made that it's the perfect time in my life to create. My sensitivity is my strength, and my art energizes me. And another one was you need to make money and artists are poor. And I wrote I will be perfectly provided for. And then for my artist date, I did a couple of things this week. Remember, the artist's dates are times where we spend quality time with ourselves, and we do something playful that adds imagery, brings in more images as inspiration for our art. And I normally read informative books, things like that. And so instead I read part of Kathy Griffin's book, which is really funny. That was entertaining. I also just took some time and danced a little bit, which is something I don't do often enough. It's something I've always loved to do. And we talked about, we wrote out one of the monsters that came up with one of the blurts. And my first voice teacher was very hard on me, very cruel. It's where part of my perfectionistic tendencies come. He was an opera teacher, voice coach, technically, and I really needed a teacher at the time. But I remember I performed in public the first time. I played the piano and sang "Oh Holy Night." And we showed him the video, and while my mom was there, he kind of like didn't say anything. And then when she left, he was like, it sounded like you had never heard that before. And it was just really like, I mean, it was my first performance. Like, it was the first time I sang in public. So at that point, I had thought, yeah, it wasn't perfect, but that's why I'm studying. Like, I have had a growth mindset in that moment where I was like, I believe I can grow and get better and improve, and that's why I've signed up to study this, to refine it. I have some natural talent. I know that it needs refinement. That's why I'm here. But I kind of wasn't mature enough and experienced enough to know that. So when he sort of said those things, and he often commented things like that, I slowly started to develop a fixed mindset around it, whether like you're either good enough or you're not to be a singer. And nothing is like that. You know, we can grow into anything. So, and then that's something I actually learned from a friend of mine about the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. It's like a coaching concept. So those places where we lack self-esteem and muscle may actually be places where we have a fixed mindset and we don't really see that there's room for growth. We could work on that. So that's something to think about. Yeah, I had all kinds of voice teachers that really took me through the mill, and I was too sensitive, not too sensitive, but wow, I'm my own monster. No, I was just impressionable. So I wasn't wise enough and experienced enough and kind of worldly enough to know how to guard against that and kind of, like, now I'm very cautious about what I take in and what I allow to affect me. I still get triggered, but it's more out of defending myself and not just blindly listening to somebody else just because they're in an authoritative position. So yeah, that was that. And then we wrote like a letter to the editor about our creativity. And then we wrote about people that actually said positive things in our lives. I remember vividly my 8th grade teacher telling me, "You have a beautiful voice," when I was cantering our graduation mass. I went to Catholic school. And she only said it once. It wasn't something she tried to really instill in me or anything. And I wasn't a singer. I didn't consider myself a singer in any way. But when she said that, it's always stuck with me. I remember it to this day. So, and she's someone that was from New York and would always talk about New York. And so I just thought she was amazing. And I've had a lot of people like that. I've had a lot of support. There's a huge list here. I won't go through them all. But when I was in musical theater school, it was our first semester, and I had a very classical sounding voice. Wasn't great at belting. I could mix, but I couldn't belt. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. It didn't sound good to me when I did it. I just didn't understand. And I was desperate for approval because my self-esteem was plummeting as an artist. And I remember the first time we kind of had another teacher sit in and watch our performances. The teacher ended up telling us that that lady had complimented 2 of the performances and one of them was mine, and she kind of said, "Now there's a real actress." And that stuck with me. It's like those little moments where you feel seen and, you know, appreciated for what you can do. And this person's opinion really mattered to me. So, and I have a lot of people that believe in me. So yeah, that was great. And we worked with our affirmations every day with our morning pages. I don't know if I already said this, but I kind of read a book and danced for my artist date. The dancing was so much fun. And so for chapter 2, for this week, week 2, it was a lot about where we put our attention, our focus, and our boundaries around our creativity. She talked about Crazymakers, who kind of stir things up, create a storm within us, always have a tendency to call or, you know, interrupt our time, and it's always on their terms. And we allow it, we somehow contribute to that out of our own block or whatever. And there are other blocked artists in our lives that may feel threatened when we become unblocked and we start to create. So those are things to think about. And this week we're going to be looking at where we put our time, where we put our focus and attention, and how we create boundaries and structure around creating. So we'll dive deeper into that. There's a huge task list this week too. A lot of it is just reviewing and going back, but we'll go through that next time. And I'm already feeling really great just implementing the morning pages. How are you guys feeling? Yeah, let me know in the comments. I'd really appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Like this video if you're following along so that I know. And if you hit the little bell icon, you'll get notified when another video is uploaded. All right, thank you so much, you guys. Have a great creative week, and I will see you next time. Good night.